when my children, Mark and Clara, left me in the cold, sterile room of the nursing home. My daughter held my hand, her eyes filled with fake tears, and said, "Mom, this is for the best. We love you so much." My son nodded along, but his eyes weren't filled with love. I could see the dollar signs glittering in them. They were going to sell my house. The house my late husband and I had built brick by brick. They thought they had discarded me in a corner, a forgotten memory. But they didn't know one thing. As they drew up the papers to sell that house, they had no idea I had already changed the deed. And the new owner I had chosen was about to change their lives, forever. My name is Evelyn, and I'm 75 years old. For the last 50 years, I lived every single day for my family. My husband, Arthur, passed away a year ago, and after he was gone, my world shrank to my two children, Mark and Clara. Mark, my eldest, was always ambitious, his eyes forever fixed on the next big opportunity. And Clara, my sweet daughter, had a voice so sweet it could disguise poison as honey. After Arthur's death, they both started visiting more often. At first, I thought it was out of concern, that they were trying to fill the void of my loneliness. They'd bring me meals, sit with me looking at old photos, and ask about my health. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now," Clara would say, her voice dripping with a sympathy that melted my heart. But slowly, the subject of their conversations began to shift. "Mom, this house is just too big for you," Mark said one day, pacing around the living room. "It must be so difficult to maintain." "This is our home, son," I said softly, looking at Arthur's still empty armchair. "Every wall in this house holds a memory of you." That day, I brushed their words aside. "We know, Mom, I thought it was their love. We're worried. They're concerned. What if you fall? I was so naive. What if you need help in the middle of the night? I still remember the day it happened. We want you to be somewhere with 24-hour care." They arrived early in the morning, holding a stack of papers. Their faces were grim. "Mom, we found a wonderful place for you," Mark said, trying to soften his voice. "It's a senior living community. You'll have so many people your age. You'll make friends. You'll be taken care of." "But I don't want to go anywhere," I said, my voice trembling. "This is my home." "Mom, don't be stubborn," Clara said, her tone hardening slightly. "We've already made all the arrangements. This is for your own good." They placed some papers in front of me. "Just sign here. It's a formality, so we can manage your assets while you're there." Tears welled in my eyes. I tried to look into their eyes, the eyes of the children I had given birth to, the children I had taught to walk, but I didn't see love. I saw a cold, ruthless greed. They wanted my house, and I was an obstacle. I refused to sign, but it didn't matter. The next day, they arrived with two people who identified themselves as social workers. They asked me a few questions, and my children told them I was becoming forgetful, that I couldn't care for myself. It was all a carefully orchestrated performance. Within a week, they had me legally declared incompetent and committed me to the Golden Years nursing home. The day they took me, I looked back at my house one last time. The sun was streaming through the window where Arthur used to sit and read the paper. The walls were adorned with our family photos: Mark's first birthday, Clara's graduation, our 50th wedding anniversary. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the museum of my life. Clara hugged me and whispered in my ear, "We'll visit every week, Mom." But there was no warmth in her embrace. She was just getting me out of the way. The nursing home was nothing like they described. It was a sad, colorless place. The air hung heavy with the smell of disinfectant and despair. My room had a small window that looked out onto a brick wall. The yellow paint on the walls was peeling. That first night, I lay in my bed as my tears soaked into the pillow. I had been betrayed by my own children. They had taken my home, my memories, my dignity. But then, in the silence of the night, I remembered Arthur, an evening a few months before he passed. We were sitting in the garden and he took my hand. "Evelyn," he'd said, "I love you. But I also know our children. They are good, but they have a streak of greed. If anything happens to me, protect yourself." I didn't understand him then, but Arthur was always 2 steps ahead. He had given me the number of a lawyer, a Mr. Harrison, and told me, "If you ever feel like you're being cornered, he's the first person you call." That night, lying in that cold nursing home bed, the grief inside me slowly began to transform into a cold, hard rage. My children thought they had thrown away a week-old woman. They thought the game was over. They had no idea the game had just begun. They didn't know that on Arthur's advice, I had met with Mr. Harrison 6 months prior. I told him my fears. And on his counsel, I had quietly changed the deed to my house. The house was no longer in my name. My children had put me in a nursing home to sell my house. They didn't know they were trying to sell a house that wasn't theirs to sell. The next morning, I used the payphone in the nursing home's common area to call Mr. Harrison. My voice no longer trembled. It had a new, steely strength. "Mr. Harrison, it's Evelyn. It's time." "Mrs. Miller, I've been waiting for your call." His calm, confident voice replied, "I heard what your children did. I am so sorry." "The time for sorrow is over, Mr. Harrison. Now is the time for action," I said. "Is everything in place?" "Absolutely, just as we planned. The deed was legally and completely transferred to Sarah's name. Your children have no clue." Sarah. A small smile touched my lips. Sarah was a young nurse who had cared for Arthur in his final days. She was kind and honest, an orphan who worked day and night to pay for her younger sister's education. My children had always looked down on her, calling her just a nurse. They didn't know that Arthur and I saw in her the integrity and kindness we had wished for in our own kids. I had deeded the house to her, with the secret, legally binding condition that she allow me to live there for the rest of my life. "They'll try to put the house on the market soon," I told Mr. Harrison. "Let them. I want them to celebrate their victory before I pull the rug out from under their feet." The next few weeks were hell, but the fire of revenge burning inside me kept me going. My only friend at the nursing home was Margaret, an 80-year-old woman whose children had also abandoned her for her assets. "It's the new generation, Evelyn," she'd say. "They don't understand love, only money." Mark and Clara visited me every Sunday. They brought flowers and fruit and asked about my health. "Are you happy here, Mom?" Clara would ask, and I would nod with a faint smile. I watched their little play and laughed to myself. They told me they were looking for a buyer for the house. "We got a fantastic offer, Mom," Mark said one day, a greedy glint in his eye he couldn't quite hide. "A developer wants to buy the lot. The price is incredible." "That's wonderful," I said softly. "Do what you think is right." My easy agreement made them ecstatic. They thought I had given up. That evening, Clara called me. "Mom, we closed the deal. The money will be transferred next week. We're going to get you the best suite in this nursing home." "You're such a good daughter," I said, and hung up. Then I called Mr. Harrison. "They've taken the bait. What's our next move?" "Now we wait," Mr. Harrison said. "The day they walk into the developer's office to collect their money, they will get the shock of their lives." That day arrived. I knew their meeting was at 11 a.m. I sat in my room at the nursing home, with Margaret by my side. My heart was pounding. At 11:30, my phone rang. It was Mark. His voice was a cocktail of panic and fury. "Mom, what is this joke? We're at the developer's office and they're saying the house isn't in your name." I feigned innocence. "What do you mean? Of course it's in my name." "No, they're saying the owner is some Sarah Jenkins." "Who the hell is Sarah Jenkins?" he roared. "Sarah? Oh, you mean the sweet nurse who took care of your father? She's a lovely girl," I said calmly. There was a dead silence on the line. Then Clara snatched the phone. Her sweet voice was now laced with venom. "Mom, what did you do? You gave our house to that servant? How could you?" "That wasn't your house, Clara. It was my house," I said, my voice as strong as steel. And I gave my house to someone I deemed worthy of it. Remember what you called her? Just a nurse. Well, now that just a nurse is the owner of your dream home. I heard a scream, and the line went dead. I knew this was only the beginning. They wouldn't stay quiet. They would fight, and I was ready for it. The next day, they stormed into the nursing home, their faces red with rage. They practically kicked the door open. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mark screamed, startling the other residents. "I did what I thought was right," I said peacefully, remaining seated. "You're insane. You're mentally ill," Clara shrieked. "We will prove in court that you were not of sound mind when you signed those papers. We'll drag that nurse through the mud, and we won't spare you either." "Go ahead and try," I said, looking them straight in the eye. "But remember, I didn't do this alone. I have Mr. Harrison, and he has proof of every lie you've ever told." That was a new blow. They thought they were fighting a helpless old woman. They had no idea I had a legal army behind me. They did exactly what I expected. They filed a lawsuit, claiming I was mentally incompetent. They argued that I was confused and forgetful, and that Sarah had manipulated me into signing over the house. But Mr. Harrison was prepared. He presented my complete medical records in court, proving I was in perfect health. He called my friends, neighbors, and even staff from the nursing home as witnesses, all of whom testified to my sharp and lucid mind. The real bombshell, however, was when Mr. Harrison called Sarah to the stand. Sarah, who had always been quiet and humble, stood tall and confident. She explained how Arthur and I had helped her, and how I had given her the house, on the condition that she never sell it and turn it into a home for abandoned elders. Then she handed the judge another envelope. It contained a video. My children knew nothing of this video. Arthur had recorded it in his final days. In it, he looked directly at the camera and said, "If you are watching this, it means my children are living up to my worst fears. I, Arthur Miller, of sound mind and body, grant my wife, Evelyn, the full and unwavering authority to do with our assets as she sees fit. I know she will always make the right decision." The courtroom fell silent. Mark and Clara's faces went white as sheets. Their entire case crumbled in the face of their father's final testament. The judge threw out their case and reprimanded them for wasting the court's time. But the story didn't end there. The developer they had made a deal with sued them for fraud, for attempting to sell a property they didn't own. They had taken an advance from him, which they now had to return with interest. Furthermore, they had taken out loans against the house. Now, the banks were after them. Within a few months, Mark and Clara were bankrupt. Mark lost his job, and Clara's wealthy friends turned their backs on her. They had to sell their luxury condo and move into a small rented apartment. One evening, as I sat in the nursing home garden with Margaret, I got a call. It was Clara. Her voice was broken. "Mom, we need you. We have nothing left." "Do you need me or my money?" I asked quietly. She began to sob. "Everything. Mom, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Please, forgive us." "Forgiveness is for mistakes, Clara, not for sins," I said. "You betrayed me, and you betrayed your father's trust. You thought I was a burden you could throw away. Now you can live in the world you created for yourselves." I hung up. Margaret squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing, Evelyn." A few weeks later, Mr. Harrison and Sarah came to visit me. "Evelyn," Sarah said, "the house is legally clear of all trouble. I want you to come home." I smiled. "No, Sarah, that's your home now, but I have an idea." And so, we did what Arthur would have wanted. We turned the house into Arthur's haven, a place that offered free shelter to elderly people abandoned by their children. Sarah managed the home, and I funded the project with my remaining savings. I moved out of the nursing home, but not back to my old house. I bought a small, beautiful apartment near the city, with a view of the hills. I started my life over. I joined a painting class. I went for a walk every morning, and I often visited Arthur's Haven to spend time with the residents. I never saw Mark or Clara again. I heard they left town, trying to start fresh. Maybe one day they would learn from their mistakes. Maybe not. But it was no longer my problem. Sometimes, as I sit on my new balcony sipping my tea, I feel Arthur watching over me, smiling. My children thought they would get rich by selling a house. They never understood that true wealth isn't in the walls of a home, but in the love, respect, and memories built within them. They tried to sell a house, but in the process, they sold their souls. My name is Evelyn, and I learned that when life pushes you into a corner, it doesn't mean the game is over. It just means it's your turn to make your move. If you liked my story, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far my voice has traveled. And what would you do in my place? I'm waiting to read your opinions. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Until the next story, take care. With love and respect.